The Lottery, Bloody Billion. Chapter 8. Blunt Smoke and Betrayal. Rook lit the blunt off the stove coil because lighters have a way of vanishing when a night gets teeth. Smoke dragged its thumb down the back of his throat, heavy and grateful, and the room exhaled with him. A busted shotgun apartment 2 floors over a pawn shop where every guitar in the window had a story it wouldn't tell. The walls sweated steam. The window tried to pretend it could hold a city back with a crooked latch. Dane poured 2 fingers of cheap whiskey into a jelly jar and let the bottleneck clink once on the chipped counter like punctuation for a sermon nobody wanted to give. Little Ty crouched on the milk crate by the door. One knee up, bandana around his neck loose as a threat, eyes running inventory on every sound the building made. Lover's argument, pipe cough, elevator mourning its own joints. "You sure about this roof?" Dane asked without looking up. Rook pulled, held, let the leaf roll language around his brain until the jitter from the cheap rails earlier filed its teeth down to etiquette. "Ain't the roof I'm sure of," he said. "It's the welcome." "Mint say the word?" Ty asked. "He said the shape of a word," Rook answered. "Said the dealers were feeling generous. Generous don't pay rent. It wants a receipt." Dane smirked. "Receipt gonna be in blood or favors?" "Same ink," Rook said. The plan, if the word plan can be insulted that far, was to slip Peace Night in early and collect breath before Ledger's vans found a new pretense to cork mercy. Peace Night wasn't a holiday so much as a rumor with a stove. Angels ladling rice, aunties policing doorways with prayer and profanity. A borrowed DJ who could turn grief into a backbeat for 4 minutes at a time. The dealers a block south of the warehouse had offered to host staging, which sounded like charity if you didn't know what percentages smelled like. Ty stood, rolled his shoulders, checked his laces like he'd learned from watching men who'd outrun things that had engines. "I'll go first," he said. "See if their eyes blink too slow." "You see a slow blink, you don't get brave," Rook told him. "You get sideways." The kid grinned, that bright, stupid bravery that made Rook half hate him and wholly love him. Dane flicked half a fingernail of powder onto the back of his hand, kissed it, eyes going glass smooth. "For the road," he said. "We ain't saints." They went, stairs past mailboxes with names taped on crooked open door to a hallway that smelled like noodles and the last fight, street where the wind carried fryer oil, river metal, and whatever cologne Ledger wore when he polished his lies. They cut south, slow, a line of 3 that read as one if you didn't know what to look for. Chain slack around Rook's knuckles, bottleneck asleep in Dane's back pocket, Ty's hands empty and therefore dangerous. The dealer's den pretended to be a florist. Busted marquee reading Leon's Lilies, last S dangling like a tooth. Inside, the only flowers were the fake white ones stuck in the tip jar. Mint lounged by the register, all bracelets and apology, grin bright enough to get him robbed twice, but slippery enough to survive it. "Family," he sang, arms wide, palms flashing innocence he definitely didn't own. "Don't marry me with your mouth," Dane said, squeezing past him. Lilt sat on a stool just past the fake lilies with Violet across her lap like a choir book. She didn't smile, she didn't frown. Her eyes did the work. "You late," she said. "We early for the lie," Rook answered. Behind the counter, a beaded curtain pretended intimacy. It rattled and let out a man named Nash, who wore his hoodie like it cost more than his rent. Nash's crew spread across the room like spilled oil, nothing dramatic, just the casual gravity of men who think their mood is weather. A white cooler on a dolly sat in the corner like a promise. Another sat beside it like a threat. "Friends," Nash said, hands at belly, rings catching light like fish hooks. "We break bread before we break heads." "You sell bread before you count it," Rook said. Nash laughed, compelled. "You got poetry in your pockets, bridge ghost." He jerked his chin toward the back. "We got a little set up for Peace Night. We'll bless the food, make sure no additives. Ledger don't get to own the narrative." Mint twitched when Nash said bless. Rook saw it and filed it, Lilt angled Violet against the counter, a mother laying down a sleeping child with one eye open. Ty drifted to the cooler, crouched, touched the latch like it might bite. "You blessing with what?" he asked. Nash smiled with his gums. "Love, lil man." "Your love smells like benzene," Ty said. A chuckle ran across the crew. The good kind and the bad kind are cousins. Rook didn't take his eyes off the cooler. "We ain't running soup through your hands." "Family," Nash cooed. "We offering refrigeration, staging, a little smoke. Ain't no strings." "Everything's string," Dane said. A door banged at the back and Mason slid in, too smooth to be comfortable, face wearing the beige of truce. "Ledger's van's doing a courtesy tour 3 blocks west," he reported. "Priest with a new body cam tried to test his sorrow voice in front of a mural and caught birdseed instead. You got 40 minutes before the algorithm remembers your block exists." "Then let's stage fast," Mint blurted. "I promised the angels the rice would come in hot, not suspicious." Nash clapped his hands. His crew opened the beaded curtain like a magician unveiling something that wasn't a trick. Back room, linoleum with cigarette burns, folding tables, heat lamps with cords twisted like dreadlocks, a second cooler humming low. On a steel prep table sat 3 aluminum pans covered in foil, 2 spice tubs labeled in a hand that had dropped out of school to count money, a stack of paper bowls, and a pair of blue nitrile gloves turned inside out, like they'd regretted touching something. "See?" Nash beamed. "Legit." Rook's skin itched. Legit never announces itself. He walked past the table and knelt by the second cooler. Duct tape sealed the lid like a secret. He looked up at Nash. "What's this one keep cold?" "Water," Nash said. "Too fast." "Open it," Lilt said, voice soft and flat as a tire iron. Nash kept smiling, but the room's air had a new texture, a gritty weight. One of his boys shifted his foot and made a whisper against linoleum, like sand learning to gossip. Dane drifted a step left for doorway geometry. Ty scratched his cheek with his middle finger, a holy gesture made vulgar for sport. "Family," Nash tried again, strained now. "Ain't nobody accusing nobody. We all neighbors." "Neighbors rob each other right after they hold the door," Rook said. He slid the chain off his wrist slow, links gossiping, no thread in the sound and all of it. He wiped his thumb across the duct tape. It flaked like bad morals. Mint swallowed loud enough to be a percussion track. "Nash," he said, smile trembling. "Just show my friends the water so I can go be a saint somewhere that doesn't require bail." Nash's eyes did math. He nodded toward one of his lieutenants, skinny kid with a Lakers cap and a tattoo of a dagger on his throat that had been inked by a man who'd never seen a real one. "Crack it," Nash said. Lakers peeled tape. The cooler burped cold air into the room. Rook looked. Bottled water. Ice bags. And under the ice, a Ziploc brick of something the color of dry chalk. 2 more twins spooned under it, cozy and expensive. Dane whistled. "That ain't rice." Nash didn't flinch. "Party favors," he said. "For later. We bless mercy with commerce." "Those bricks got neighbors?" Rook asked, voice lighter than the weight of the question. The boy with the dagger tattoo shrugged, eyes a little too wide. "They got cousins," he muttered. Lilt shifted Violet just enough to let the bat's spine kiss the table. The sound was small and enormous. "We don't stage peace night over a kilo," she said. "We don't hide help in a coffin." Nash lifted both hands, a mime of surrender. "Respect," he said. "We'll move the favors. Cooler stays water. We not monsters." "You test the food in front of me," Rook said, nodding at the foil pans. "And you sniff the seasonings before any auntie touches it." Nash arched a brow. "You calling me poison?" "I'm calling the sentry poison," Rook said. "You might be a delivery system." A little edge in the room loosened, laughter you could live with. Nash motioned Lakers. They peeled foil. Steam lifted, honest and hungry. Rice, beans, chicken hacked rough. Food that could silence a riot for 12 bites. Rook leaned in, nostrils flaring. He smelled cumin, onion, broth. He didn't smell the bitter ghost of Fent or the sugary lie of cutting agents. He looked at the spice tubs, one labeled salt, one labeled love, the last labeled hot in a different hand. He tapped hot. Lakers popped the lid. Peppers, honest ones. Good, Rook said. He didn't relax. Now box it. Nash's boys moved, muscle memory of men who'd fed block parties and funerals with the same ladles. Mint started stacking bowls like a raccoon sorting stolen jewelry. Mason stayed at the doorway, eyes on street, pretending his phone was a prayer book. Dane leaned against the fridge and rolled himself a small one, leaf only, a ribbon of calm to tie around the coming noise. Ty stayed small and everywhere, fingers sliding along seams, eyes drinking hands. He looked at Rook. Rook gave him chin. Do the other thing. The kid ghosted to the front room and stood by the fake lilies. 2 men were inside now who hadn't been before. Collar shirts, hands too clean, smiles polished by jobs that required lying with eye contact. Afternoon, one said to Ty, like adults address teenagers when they want to win a scene instead of a conversation. We're from the Neighborhood Safety Council. That a new way to spell snitch? Ty asked. The man laughed like he wanted to invoice it. We're here to ensure the event remains orderly. Order ain't food, Ty said. Food is food. The man's smile pulled tight. His partner drifted toward the beaded curtain. Lilt slid off the stool, Violet up as casual as a purse. The bat blocked the curtain. Closed kitchen, she said. Health code. The man looked past her at the white cooler with the duct tape half off and made a choice about which narrative he wanted today. We can post at the door, he offered. De-escalation posture. De-escalate hunger, Lilt said. Start with yourself. Mint swung through the curtain with a stack of bowls and a grin that dared the world to take them. He made a show of putting the top bowl under his nose and breathing dramatic. See? No poison. Just rice. The man's smile came back. We appreciate community leaders partnering with... Shut up, someone said from the doorway. Suture. No apron. Rain slicker unzipped. Knife roll slung across his chest in a way that said utility, not costume. The little burn on his lip had gone angry red. He had a camera boy again, of course. He always did. The boy looked 15 and scared, which meant he could be any age and already doomed. We don't serve you, Mint said, voice sudden flat. I'm here to donate, Suture said, spreading hands. Meat. Protein. Protein helps the grieving. It steadies them. He motioned to a plastic bag one of his men held, a butcher's parcel with grease marks like halos. Lilt didn't look. We don't eat sermons, she said. Rook stepped up from the back room, chain coiled casual at his hip. The room tilted, a new fulcrum. Suture's eyes tracked the chain like a cat tracks a wave of sunlight on a wall. He smiled. You still wearing jewelry, Bridge Ghost? You still wearing a camera, Rook said. Suture tilted his head. Documentation is a gift. To who? Dane asked. Sponsors or ghosts? Both, Suture said. Mint shoved the bowls toward the beaded curtain, shoulders tight. We're late, he announced too loud. We got mouths and we got a river waiting to say it forgives us for an hour. Move. Nash clapped again. A little less show now, more business. He snapped at 2 runners in branded hoodies. Load. Take back route. If Ledger's van breathes near you, Cough Rook stayed in the threshold between rooms and let the people moving do what they had to. He kept Suture in his peripheral. He kept the neighborhood safety men in his other. He kept Mint's shaking hands in his third eye, the one that learned to read trembling like weather. Ty drifted back into the kitchen after the first load went out. He tapped Rook's elbow once. Low voice, low breath. That first cooler's clean. Second had cousins. Third. Third? Rook said, too soft to be heard by anyone but the chain. Ty cut his eyes at the mop closet door by the sink. Padlock new, key on Laker's chain. They fumbled when Lilt tapped the bat. Rook nodded. Open it quiet. Ty's smile flashed sharp. He vanished. Suture took a step into the back room like a tourist, stopped when Violet appeared in the corner of his vision like a storm warning. He looked at Lilt, decided the rain slicker wouldn't keep him dry, and stayed tense where he could call it a posture later. "Unarmed," he said. "I came unarmed." "You came with knives folded," Lilt said. "That's a behavior, not an ethic." "You always talk like that?" Suture asked, amused. "Only when men bring chores to a kitchen they can't afford." The neighborhood safety man cleared his throat, wrote something in air with his finger, a little box that meant clip. His boy slid the camera up his chest like a compliment to himself. The world loves a box. It turns people into episodes. Mason murmured from the doorway, "Still phone, still beige." Vans circling. 1 block. Priest warming up. Ledger switched the font again. Means he's nervous. "Good," Rook said. "Let him stutter." Ty reappeared like a roomer wearing good shoes. He had a key and a smirk and something like fury in his nostrils. "Closet," he breathed. "Gas." Rook's body went quiet, the kind of quiet that lives underneath panic and feeds it instructions. "What kind?" he asked. "Little green canisters." Big red can. And a plastic tub with packets that say spice but smell wrong, like hospital candy and pool cleaner had a baby. Nash felt the air change before he parsed why. He turned slow, like a man getting pulled over. "We cleaning," he offered to the room as if he needed a judge, not a sentence. "You got to understand, Ledger been sending boys to our block for proof. We building a curtain." "Curtain kills," Dane said. "Curtain confuses predators," Nash shot back, honest in the worst way. "We ain't poisoning nobody. We making fog so cameras eat shit." Rook stared at him, chain warming in his palm like a lie detector. Spice packets meant synthetic hell, those neat rectangles of herbal incense tourists bought to hallucinate legality while their brains boiled from the inside. The green canisters meant butane. The big red can meant gasoline. A fog that chokes, a curtain that burns. "Open the closet," Rook said. Nash set his jaw. "We got deliveries to make." "Open," Lilt said, the vowel not bending for anybody with jewelry. Lakers fiddled with keys, trying to move slow enough to look like choice instead of compliance. Ty pushed his wrist with 2 fingers into the right one and cut the pretense. The padlock popped. The smell hit the room with the dopey grin of a drunk uncle. Fumes, cheap rubber, a sweetness that made your head see stars and your stomach imagine ways to die. Mint stepped back, hand over his mouth. "Nash," he said, heartbroken in a way that only comes to con men who wanted to be good this once. "You were gonna fog peace night." Nash's eyes flashed, not guilt, pride misfiled as salvation. "I was gonna protect peace night. Ledger can't film what he can't describe. Give me 5 seconds, I can blanket the alley. No proof, no drape, no oxygen," Dane cut in. "No aunties with lungs, no angels, no kids on scooters. You a saint now with a match?" Silence, the kind that pushes on your ears. Suture coughed a laugh he couldn't help. "All y'all playing priests," he said. "I'm the only one honest about being a butcher." Rook moved before anyone else could narrate. He put his hand on the door, pushed it open hard enough that the green cans rattled, the red sloshed. He palmed one of the spice packets with 2 fingers and lifted it to his nose. The smell was everything the news warned and nothing the label confessed. He turned it over. The fine print screamed not for human consumption, like a kiss from a liar. "Not tonight," he said. He looked at Lakers. "Get a bin. Dump this outside in the alley drain. Not the red, not the green, the fake incense, the bullshit." Now Nash shifted. "That's money." "That's murder," Lilt said. Nash made a decision out loud. "Do it," he told Lakers, voice like a father who'd been reminded by a woman that his house could burn with his pride inside. Lakers moved. Mint pressed both hands together under his chin. "Thank you," he told nobody and everybody. Suture clicked his tongue. You just murdered a curtain, he said. The show's gonna be brighter. Then we teach the audience to squint, Rook said. Mason's phone chirped. 2 minutes, he announced. Van at the corner, hazard lights already lying. They brought churros again. They think sugar is theology. Load, Rook told Nash's runners. Move the food now. We'll carry the first 30 bowls ourselves. Mint, you walk point. Lilt, door. Dane, you break any wrist that reaches where it shouldn't. Ty. Ceiling, the kid said. I'll kill the lights, then turn them back on like I invented sunrise. They moved. Bowls into milk crates into arms, Mint rabbiting toward the back alley with his bracelets jangling like a fairy tale for the tired. Lilt at the door doing traffic with Violet's quiet authority. Dane dragging a crate with one hand and the bottle in the other, humming something dirty and devout. Rook grabbed a crate and shouldered through the lilies, eyes over knuckles. Outside, the alley's cold made the steam look like souls. 2 community partners from the neighborhood safety team rolled a respectful proof drape onto PVC like a picnic blanket. The van idled, LED bar trying to do the job the sun had quit. On their flank, Suture's camera boy pirouetted for angles. Farther out, a priest found his light and tried to look humble in it. Kitchen coming through, Mint sang, louder than the choir and ruder than the hymn. One of the partners moved to intercept with a clipboard smile. Lilt's bat dropped an inch and invented gravity. The man found a new hobby, stepping back. Rook felt the prickling on his neck that meant a lens had found him. He turned slightly to show the chain and the crate and not his eyes. Let them film labor, not the person doing it. They hit the warehouse door like a birthday party where the cake was salvation. The angels inside shouted in a language older than receipts. The DJ bumped the bass without apology. Bowls went to hands that had been doing math with hunger all day, and now could do it with heat. Rook set his crate down and took a breath that cost him less than the last one. Then Betrayal walked in on 2 feet and smelled like spearmint gum and gun oil. Mason saw him first. Mace, he hissed, not to warn, just to name. Mace wore a bomber jacket with patches that told lies about places he hadn't been. He'd done time-running packages for Nash and cut his loyalty in half with a coupon. He smiled naively, hands up, pinky ring catching light. I came to volunteer, he said. Rook's stomach answered before his brain did. You came to count, he said. Then you came to text. Mace spread his fingers wider, showing they were empty. Empty means the pockets are honest. They weren't. You could see the outline of a phone like a heart in his jacket's inside pocket. Lilt stepped in front of him and let Violet take a breath. Say what you are, she told him. Helpful, he said, reflex. Try again, Dane said, behind him now. Tired, Mace tried. Try honest, Rook said. Mace's smile faltered. The door behind him breathed, tiny. The van's LED bar throbbed. Nash's runners shuffled crates, their eyes doing the math of whether they kept their jobs if Mace bled. Mace started. Betrayal, Ty finished, killing the lights for a single half-second so the room stuttered around the ugly word. When the power blinked back, Violet had nudged Mace onto his knees without touching him. Rook plucked the phone from the inside pocket, thumbed it open on its own registered face. Group chat, a list of wolves and 2 clipboards. A draft text, they bringing food in now, back alley, no fog. No fog, Rook read, soft. His hand moved on its own, chain whispering around his knuckles. One flick. Metal kissed Mace's ear, hard enough to cut, not enough to end. You almost made us light an altar, Rook said, for content. Mace put his palms up in surrender, so theatrical it might have been honest. Ledger was gonna do what he always does, Lilt said. Make a brochure out of a funeral. Suture watched from the doorway, eyes narrow, camera boy humming around him like a loyal fly. Let him send the text, he suggested lightly. Tell them fog is on. Then watch which men cough on purpose right, Rook told Mace. voice more dangerous for how quiet it was. Write something true. Mace licked his lips, typed. Food moved. Alley shut. No angle here. Bridge better. Send, Rook said. Mace sent. Somewhere, a van turned its wheel toward a bridge that wanted to be worshipped and found only pigeons and a priest with no talent left. Rook pocketed the phone, kept the SIM like a tooth. Mint staggered past with another crate, cheeks wet, not crying. Go, he told Rook, urgent. You keep building the lane. I'll keep polishing the lie. Rook touched his shoulder once. Make it a good one. It's all I got, Mint said, and fled into work. Outside, the alley took a breath. Inside, the room learned it could hold music and hunger and wrath without exploding. A little girl with hair beads knocking like applause took a bowl from Ty and said, Thank you, mister, solemn as a judge. Ty swallowed something hot in his throat that wasn't broth and nodded like a man in a church where he didn't know the hymns yet. Dane leaned in close to Rook's ear. We ain't dead, he said, marvel and warning. Yet, Rook answered. He set his hand to his cheek, pepper-burned tender, and let the pain be his rosary. He let the chain lie quiet for a minute. He watched Lilt tilt Violet against the door again and close her eyes for 2 heartbeats. He watched Mint bargain with a clipboard and win without smiling. He watched Nash send Lakers with the spice to the drain, face schooled into a dignity he hadn't earned yet but might. Peace Night, somehow, started breathing on time. And because Betrayal never misses a party twice, something in the ceiling shifted, the drop tile bulging like a lie. Ty looked up first. We got rats, he said. The tile sagged. A gloved hand pressed at the edge, testing the room the way a shark tests a boat. Not rats, Dane said. Proof. Rook rolled his shoulders, took one more kiss of leaf, and turned to face whatever Ledger had stuffed in the ducks this time. The tile bowed again, dust puffing like old music. Ty was already moving, not away, under. He slid a folding table 6 inches with his hip and used it as a stage for audacity, hopped up, palm flat to the sag. Hello, rent inspector, he said to the ceiling, voice sweet and poison. His other hand lifted the mop and kept it casual, like a kid about to play drums on God. Down, Rook warned. The hand withdrew. The tile shivered. A slender camera snake slipped between grid and gypsum, black cable, fisheye lens, a polite little worm for other people's grief. Dane flicked the bottleneck and cracked the lens like an egg. The snake recoiled with a pathetic squeal of servo. From the alley, a drone's pitch changed, angry insect realizing its twin lost an eye. Ceiling 2, Lilt said, not looking up, hearing the scuttle in the opposite corner. Violet rose half an inch, the bat's grain telling the room a fable about consequences. Mint froze mid-carry, 3 bowls stacked on one forearm, then forced breath and began moving again. Angels don't get to panic. A voice seeped through foam and dust, tinny, delighted. We got eyes in the rafters. Can we get a light in the back? Eat a socket, Dane replied, and killed the breaker himself this time. Not all the way, just the row feeding the back track. The front stayed lit, bowls still found hands. The DJ kept a heartbeat soft. The rear went dusk, shadows blooming like trustworthy weeds. The second tile dipped. Ty lifted the mop like a spear and jabbed the sag. No jab, really. A push with a question mark. The glove on the other side flinched and made a mistake. It grabbed. Ty yanked downward, grinning nasty, and tile ripped loose with a papery shriek. A man fell half through, belly on grid, legs kicking in the crawl space. He wore a windbreaker with a logo that meant grant money and a harness clipped to a joist. The harness saved him from eating the floor. It didn't save his breath when Lilt stepped forward and set Violet across his ribs with a beautiful, measured cruelty. Hi, she said. Welcome to our ceiling. He wheezed. The camera boy behind Suture flinched reflexively, then framed harder. Addiction calling itself professionalism. Suture tasted the air like a sommelier sniffing a fight. Respectfully, he told his lens, we're observing a community navigate intrusion. Rook whistled once, 2 tones, spaced. Mason at the door understood the dialect and slid into the alley like a beige rumor with teeth. Outside, tires shifted. Inside, angels moved bowls with holy stubbornness. No stampede, no scream, just the music going lower, the murmurs wider, the room growing shoulders. The ceiling man tried to wriggle backward, his harness dug in. He hissed an apology into the tile dust, the sort of apology men make to furniture. Ty stood on the table, grabbed the harness strap and made it a leash. "Stay," he said to murmurs and a single strangled laugh from someone who needed to laugh or break. "2 more in the crawl," Mint whispered, eyes up. "I can hear cheap pads sliding." "Let 'em come down," Rook said. "Way they fall tells you who they work for." Nash reappeared at the beaded curtain, eyes trading survival for helpfulness on layaway. He saw the ceiling show and shook his head like a teacher who knows the lessons getting taught by experience instead of lecture. "Load the last crate," he snapped to Lakers. "Front's hot." "Back stays ours," Lilt added. The second intruder committed. A boot punched through foam near the back speaker, followed by a knee, followed by a whole man in a clean polo and elbow pads. He came down with a grunt and a clatter, already fumbling for a baton that wanted to be a microphone. Dane met him with the bottleneck, not swinging, pressing, a steady little kiss under the ear that turned his balance into furniture. The man folded into a kneel he didn't mean. "Identify," Rook said, chain low, eyes high. "Neighborhood safety," the man puffed, teeth clenched. We supervised." "You trespass," Lilt said, and moved the bat 1 thumb width to close discussion. The third man didn't drop. He crawled fast toward the alley vent, smart rat, but his boots scraped and told on him. Ty slapped the duct with the mop and found the hollow. Rook grabbed the vent cover, ripped it with a noise the room wanted to cheer and didn't, and got a fistful of ankle. The ankle belonged to a person with very strong opinions about being caught. They kicked hard and lucky, heel glancing Rook's pepper burn. Pain went white and told him the truth about his cheek. He didn't yank. He rolled his wrist, chain looped, ankle trapped. He dragged like a fisherman who doesn't mind scratching his boat. The man slid into view, visor cam, mouthguard, soft armor, a fake badge that read observer in font that called itself federal. He landed on the rice line and did the world a favor by not touching the bowls. The visor cam stared right into Rook's sternum and saw theology it wasn't built to understand. "Shoes off," Dane told him, inexplicably, and to everyone's surprise the man complied, panic searching for ritual. Dane took the shoes and set them on the shelf next to the lilies, then tapped both laces with 2 fingers like blessing. "Ledger's got 9 eyes on the block," Mason hissed from the threshold. "Priest is rehearsing at the curb with a new crew. Van number 2 is trying the front door again, Churros leading the way. Also, there's a rumor the lottery office is sending a neutral auditor." "Nobody neutral eats churros," Dane said. Suture's camera boy edged closer to the fallen men. Lilt's glance froze him mid-step. He retreated without dignity, but survived, which is better than dignity most nights. Suture tilted his head like he was tasting adjectives. "It is wild," he said softly so only Rook could hear. "How beautiful people look right before bad decisions." "You look in mirrors a lot," Rook replied. Suture smiled. Compulsively, the ceiling harness finally snapped free under Ty's bodyweight physics. The man thudded to the floor, wind gone, arms loose. He rolled, coughed, tried to speak, made the universal face for "I want to be somewhere else." Lilt towed the harness with the bat and dragged it aside. "Out," she told him, flicking the tip toward the alley. He crawled that direction, learning gratitude like a dialect. The polo-kneeled man stayed where Dane's glass had put him. The visor-cam man tried to reach for his rig. Rook put his foot on the strap, not unkind, and said, "No." Mint reappeared, sweating sugar. "Line's moving," he reported. "Angels want the last crate. Also, the priest is trying to bless the fog machine. I told him it was baptized twice already." "Bless him with a delay," Rook said. "Mason?" "I can tangle him in your city permits for 3 minutes," Mason said. 4, if I praise his diction. Praise it like a paycheck, Dane suggested. Nash hovered between pride and dread. You want me to call in cousins? He asked. Real ones, not the brick kind. The ones with jackets and opinions. Rook saw it. The way his crew would flood the alley. How the clipboards would step back and let a fight brand itself. How Suture's smile would sharpen and Ledger's lower third would right itself. No gangs, he said. This is a kitchen, not an audition. Nash looked hurt. I'm not a gang, he said. You a gravity, Lilt said. Stand still, the right direction. He did. That was the bravest thing he'd done all week. They moved as a small organism. Ty taped the 2 ceiling holes with duct tape stolen from the closet that had almost murdered people. Irony as adhesive. Dane shepherded the kneeler to the alley and swapped his baton for a broom handle, a fair trade by street law. Lilt kept the door and the bat. Rook scanned faces, angels, aunties, teenagers whose eyes hadn't yet learned to lie. Suture watched like a hungry art student. The back alley hiccuped. Vans argued with bike racks. Birdseed strafed a drone. Someone in a powder blue raincoat scolded a clipboard, the way only certain aunties can scold men who've never been scolded. It bought 60 seconds of moral fog, the kind you can breathe. Final crate, Mint barked, voice hoarse from selling safety all evening. We drop, we vanish, we come back as rumor. After party? Dane teased him. Mint gave him a look that had never been invited to a party. After washing. Rice clings. And I got a stain named Ledger. Ty hopped down from the table, tugged his bandana tight. I'll tail the last bowls. You'll tail me, Lilt corrected. Violet doesn't like to be photobombed. The last crate went up like a child you don't trust the sidewalk with. High, careful hands. Rook took point with his chain half wrapped. The way you carry a leash when the dog is memory. He cut the alley with his body, generous with shoulders, cheap with eyes. The van's hazard lights blinked the beat of a hymn. The partners, with churros. Why always churros? Presented the box like an offering to a god known to accept bribes. Lilt kept the path open with a bat and a tone. They hit the warehouse door again, this time to a room already calmer. Rice baselined, bass low, angels moving like clockwork that believed in souls. Mint exhaled the longest breath of his week. It traveled. Even the DJ rolled her head like a neck forgiving its job. Rook felt the relief like a hand he didn't trust. He didn't shake it. He pocketed it for later nights with worse ceilings. Then the fire alarm started singing. High, keening, lobster and pot shriek. Not smoke trigger, a wire pull. The sound that says exit in a line or I'll punish your ears. Heads snapped, children tensed, Suture smiled. Clipboards straightened spines like they'd suddenly remembered training. Who pulled? Dane snarled. Mint threw his hands up in innocence and guilt at once. Not me, he shouted over the scream. This time I didn't break anything. Mason pointed with 2 fingers toward the fake lilies. Mace, the traitor with the pinky ring, stood there with a string dangling from his fist and a face that said he'd just won a prize and wanted to return it. It looked like a doorbell, he protested weakly. I was helping. The alarm splits a room the way money does. People who can afford to wait and people who can't afford not to. Rook saw the primed panic, the edges of stampede whispering like long grass. Music, he told the DJ. Kill the treble. Give me a drum. Bless her, she understood. The track dropped to a fat heartbeat, warm and regular. The alarm still keened, but now it had to argue with an older rhythm. Angels raised their ladles like batons and pointed. Here, here, here. Bodies obeyed as if the beat was law. They flowed instead of ran. The room had just chosen grace under duress. It was almost indecent. Lilt took Mace's wrist and moved his hand up to the ceiling so the string he'd pulled retracted like a lie. She leaned close. You got 2 options, she told him sotto voce. Community service or dental work. Pick with your knees. Service, he squeaked. Good boy, she said, and shoved a stack of bowls at him. Now serve. Rook tracked the periphery. He caught Suture's camera boy angling for the aunties. Perfect tears against flaring alarm, and stepped 2 inches into the shot. Chain lifted just high enough to make the frame about violence instead of beauty. The boy cursed softly and pivoted. The moment was saved, which is a condemnation and a prayer. Mason sidled back in. Fire department is 5 out, he murmured. Ledger told them there's a hazardous fog. He's trying to reclaim your narrative. Fog this, Dane said, and flipped the breaker back to full while Ty cracked open the rear door 5 inches to breathe the alarm into the alley without giving the alley the room. The shriek lost 1 tooth. The drum got fatter. People resumed eating as if defying noise was nutrition. Auntie number 1, the one with the gold tooth you could see when she said baby, stepped to the center and snapped twice. The room hushed enough to hear her voice under alarm and bass. We ain't dying polite, she announced. We're eating. Anybody with a camera, grab a spoon instead. Anybody with a clipboard, write your mama's name and then go home. Laughter spilled. The good kind. The one that steals Panic's shoes. Even Suture nodded. Credit where due. The visor cam man in socks hovered at the alley, his toes gripping concrete like he might learn something. The alarm finally gave up. Somewhere outside, a partner held up a churro, like he'd negotiated peace and was waiting for applause. He got Lilt's stare instead. He ate the churro himself, embarrassed. For a minute, half, Peace Night did what it says on the box. Bowls scraped. Babies sucked air without sobbing. Rook let the chain hang loose. Dane's shoulder found his, lazy brother weight. Ty stole a gulp of someone's ginger drink and didn't get slapped for it because the someone saw his eyes and decided benevolence. Then the ceiling answered the door we hadn't knocked on. A low whomp over their heads, hot wind raining grit. Not fire. Burst. Rook was moving before the dirt hit his cheek. He knew that sound. He'd heard it in the wrong deserts. The kind of whomp that says pressure just negotiated with a valve. Gas, he barked. Nash! Nash had already turned. He wasn't a fool. He was just entrepreneurial. Not mine, he said. Closet's clean. Ducks, Ty coughed, eyes already tearing. They shooting pepper through the HVAC. The smell crawled in, rancid, mouth-filling, cheap war. Mint gagged and then swallowed the gag like pride. Aunties put shirts over babies' faces faster than training manuals can be written. The DJ cut the drum and played nothing, because sometimes rhythm makes people forget to breathe. Kill intake, Dane shouted. Backwall high, red lever. Ty was on the table again. Lilt boosted him with one hand because myth is real if you train for it. He slapped the lever. The fan whined down from outraged to sulky. The pepper cloud still whispered in because architecture is a conspiracy, but slower now, petty instead of fatal. Rook stormed the alley like a weather report. A man in a maintenance vest held a canister on a telescoping pole, feeding it through a louver like communion. He wore ear protection like he thought sound was the dangerous part. Rook didn't sermonize. He broke the pole where it met the canister and twisted the can so it vomited into the operator's own vest. The man danced grief. Dane appeared and used the bottleneck to chisel the louver shut. Mason body-blocked a clipboard with an apology that had elbows. Suture didn't help or hinder. He filmed Rook's hands and the green hiss and the way the alley suddenly remembered to be a place where neighbors live. His boy zoomed on Rook's cheek where the pepper had made a map. Rook flashed his teeth without smiling, a warning, a grin, a mask, then turned his back to the lens on purpose. Mint dragged 2 teenagers with pitchers to the sinks. Water lines, he ordered. Walk through, eyes first, mouth second. Don't drown nobody. We ain't reenacting anything for Ledger. He pulled a blunt from behind his ear with shaking fingers. Put it back because triage. The firefighters arrived the way firefighters arrive when they've been lied to. Cautious, gear up, suspicious of the storyteller. First in saw bowls, babies, angels, and a bat. He took a breath, coughed off the pepper like a gentleman, and lifted his visor. What's burning? He asked. Paperwork, Lilt said. We handled the rest. He looked at the louver, oozing regret, at the men in polos blinking pride out of their eyes, at the van married to the bike rack by zip ties and will, at the churro box with 2 left. He nodded once. We'll flush the ducts and then write a report, he said. Name going on it? Rook said. The firefighter smiled without approval or contempt. It'll say, ceiling tried to be a door, community declined. That okay? It'll sell fewer ads, Rook said. Good, the firefighter said, and went to work with a hose thin and precise. Mint watched like a student in love. Dane leaned against Brick and lit a thin blunt with a real lighter he'd stolen back from Fate. Ty took 2 fast hits, coughed like he was alive. Suture lowered his camera and looked disappointed in a beautiful way. No cathedral, he murmured. Just a repair. Go process that, Lilt told him. Maybe cry with your receipts. He actually laughed, honest, the sound of a butcher who understands he won't always get to cut. He tucked the roll against his ribs and ghosted away, rain slicker whispering apologies to nobody. The room settled. The drum came back, softer than before, like a heartbeat in a chest that had just been forgiven. Angels wiped tears off cheeks with the same hands they used to ladle. Aunties passed baby wipes like contraband. The priest stood at the threshold with his body cam pointed at the floor for once and whispered nothing into his mic. Nash hovered near the mop closet like a man who wants to apologize to materials. Rook glanced at him. You tried to make fog, he said. Remember how it smelled? Nash nodded, shame doing push-ups. It smelled like coins warming in a fist. Don't forget, Rook said. The last bowl found the last hand without fuss. Peace night finished not with a flourish, but with a stack of rinsed pans and a DJ unplugging gently, like she didn't want to wake violence back up. Mint rubbed his face hard enough to erase fingerprints. We reconvene? He asked, exhausted. I got rumors to plant. Ledger's anchors need to be arguing about a bridge that refuses to be photogenic. Re-up in an hour, Rook said. Bring a bucket and a lie. Mason tucked his phone away like it had cost him blood. Auditor got lost and filed a neutral memorandum about community-led incident resolution, he reported. Translated, nobody got a good shot. Perfect, Dane said. Ugly survived with no close-up. Ty yanked the duct tape off the ceiling holes and wrote a word with a Sharpie on the gypsum before slapping new tape crosses. The word read, N-O. Sometimes graffiti is prayer. Rook rolled his shoulders, checked the chain's weight like a man checks his breath. He had leaf left, rails if necessary, a bat in a friend's hand. A kid who learned to make the ceiling say sorry. A promoter who could sell a miracle and then clean up after it. A fixer who lied better than most people told the truth, and a room that had refused to be content. Outside, Ledger's bridge sulked without a vigil. The municipal screen tried on an even newer font and settled for weather. The van finally divorced the bike rack with the firefighters' help and left in a huff of bureaucratic exhaust. The churro man tossed the last pastry in a trash can and then took it back out, because waste is a sin this neighborhood can't afford. Rook planted his palm on the warehouse's warm brick and let it vibrate the remainder of the alarm out of his bones. Lilt bumped him with Violet, small and gentle. Dane clinked the bottleneck against his chain once, superstition satisfied. Ty pocketed the Sharpie like it was a medal. Next? Mint asked, because some men can't stop producing or they'll disappear. Rook took the blunt from Dane, pulled once, and looked at the ceiling that had tried to be an enemy. We go find the men who taught it their tricks, he said, and we teach them worse ones. The warehouse cooled to the kind of quiet you pay for with noise. Angels stacked pans. The DJ unplugged like she was sneaking out of a lover's apartment at dawn. Aunties collected faces into their palms and promised them sleep. Mint wiped the white coil from his jaw and grinned on credit. Mason looked human for 10 seconds, the limit his job allows. Break, Lilt said, shoulders loose. Violet leaned against Brick like a dog that had earned a bowl. Rook nodded and palmed the chain, weight familiar as shame. Dane tapped the bottleneck on his thigh like a metronome for bad intentions that didn't show, yet. Ty tied his bandana tighter, then loosened it. He was trying to train his throat to make decisions his blood could respect. "Back to the lilies," Mint said. "We owe Nash a thank you that ain't a closing argument." "Careful with gratitude," Dane warned. "Some men hear it like an invitation to invoice." They slid into the night that tasted like electricity cooling on wet cement. The municipal screen across the avenue tried weather as a personality trait. The bridge, denied its vigil, sulked in silhouette. A drone buzzed at the altitude of expensive errors and changed its mind. It left the block for a story with more adjectives. Leon's lilies wore the same board sign and the same grin on Mint's face when he pushed the door. Bell tinkled. The fake flowers in the tip jar stood at attention like soldiers who had slept through the war. You could smell cumin residue, old money, and a wrong sweetness, like somebody's candy got resentful. "Family," Nash called, stepping through the beads. His hoodie had gained a fresh logo somewhere between crises. He moved like a man who had kept his hands clean in a dirty room and wanted applause for it. Rook scanned. Lakers at the cooler with a towel over his shoulder like he worked for a real kitchen, dagger tattoo shining. Two more boys at the back table dividing cash into stacks like vitamins. Mace, pinky ring betrayal, standing by the lilies pretending to become a better man simply by proximity to flowers. Suture was gone. His camera boy had left a smell of battery and cheap hair product behind. "You did good," Nash said, palms up, receiving a blessing he was calling a report. "Peace Night didn't choke. Ledger didn't get his proof. We all breathe a minute." Mint smiled. "We all breathe too if you stop talking and let me." Nash laughed. He poured 2 paper cups of something brown and friendly. Dane took one and didn't drink. Rook declined with his chin and lit a post-battle blunt instead. Leaf walked its fingers down his spine and whispered, "Alive, idiot." He smoked that sentence into his bones. Ty drifted to the mop closet. Reflex, not suspicion. The padlock was back. The key was gone from Laker's chain. Duct tape on the lids of the green canisters had been replaced neat by a hand that liked lines. He didn't need to ask Lilt's permission to be angry. He filed it as a future. "Count me in for a decent lie," Mason said softly, siding beside Rook with beige competence. "I'll seed the feed with community self-corrected so Ledger's editors choke on their kind adjectives." "Make 'em choke hard," Dane said. "Put a churro sideways in their throat." Nash clapped once. "Sound too crisp for a room this tired." "Before y'all ghost," he said. "Little thank you. Party's tapering. Boys got something to make the hands stop shaking. Just a little. Hospitality." He nodded to Lakers, who lifted the towel. A tray sat under it. Neat lines long as pencils, pale bricks shaved clean, a mirror that had never reflected truth. Beside it, a rolled Dutch thick as a thumb, green poking like grass through the brown. Mint's grin slid right off. "Nash," he said, warning, plea, prayer. "Peace Night leaves men with ghosts," Nash shrugged. "Ghosts want company." Rook watched the room breathe. The rails weren't poison. They were what rails always are, loan sharks, dressed as medicine. The blunt smelled like a promise he could actually keep. He took it, sparked it, pulled. Dane took one kiss off a line with the familiar ritual that had kept him fast when slow meant funeral. Ty sipped water from the angel's jug because stubborn is a religion that sometimes saves you. For 2 minutes there was an almost. Men who had survived put a little chemical mirror between themselves and the parts of the day that would bite in the night. Mint talked about hoses. Mason mourned a childhood in which alarms meant drills, not evacuation. Lilt told Violet a story in her head and rolled her wrists like punctuation. Then the wrong knock came. Not cop. Not volunteer. Not wolf too stupid to do the math. This knock wore knuckles that had earned pension. 3 beats in a pattern of men who learned to talk with doors. Rook's back went flat to the lilies. "Lights," he said. Mint killed the front row. Lilt ghosted to the side of the bead curtain. Dane slid his hand along the bottleneck like it was losing a fight with gravity. Ty moved to the back table and flicked a bill under the leg so it would wobble if an unwelcome foot demanded space. Stupid trick, useful trick. Open, Nash said with a little breathy laugh, like welcoming a collector to a pawned conscience. He didn't look at Rook. That was the first betrayal you can clock with a watch. Lakers lifted the latch. The door swung in. The men wore jackets that used to be uniforms and never stopped. Ex-cops with private plates. One had the lip chewed into a permanent question mark. Heliotrope stitched discreetly over the heart. Same flower as the courtyard jaw crew. Behind them, a fourth man in a collar shirt, tie loose. His hands were clean. His eyes were the wet gray of paper. Evening, Jaw said, stepping past the fake lilies like they were jurisdiction. Ledger sent us to ensure your hospitality complies with... Ledger didn't send you anywhere, Rook cut in, surprising himself with the heat in his own voice. Your mortgage did. Jaw's lip twitched. He clocked Rook's chain, Lilt's bat, Dane's bottle, Ty's youth, Mint's guilt, Mason's beige. He clocked the rails on the tray and the blunt in Rook's hand, the padlocked closet, the cooler with coy duct tape. He clocked Nash's smile wide as a ledger. Complaints, the collar man said, voice syrup, smile sober. About a fog plan that would have endangered community members. Nobody fogged anybody, Nash said quickly. We saving lives. You're selling absolution, Lilt said. Learn the difference. Jaw didn't move like a raid. He moved like a favor owed. He drifted to the mirror, looked down at the lines, looked up at Rook. We can call this going away, Candy, he offered. And then we can go away. Oh, he came to bargain, Dane said. Somebody cue the violin. The collar man cleared his throat. Ledger wants staged contrition, he said plainly, as if the honesty would absolve him. We carry a camera. You say we regret the misunderstanding on a black background. No logos. We cut it with a hymn. The bridge gets its vigil tomorrow. Everyone gets paid. Mint choked on his own laugh. Paid in what? Continued operations, the collar man said. There's only so much city to share. Rook's smile happened all at once, and not at all. There ain't enough city, he said. You're counting wrong. Jaw shifted his weight. He had the practiced patience of a man who knew the angles, who had thrown men at floors until floors got shy. Bridge ghost, he said. You won the room tonight. Let us win the edit. Pass, Rook said. Nash moved. Just his eyes. He glanced at the mop closet. Ty saw it. Rook saw Ty see it. The same movie played in both their heads. Fog after all. Curtain at last. Ledger's proof courtesy of altruists with a retail plan. Mace, Nash said softly, not looking at him. A whisper that somehow crossed the room. Mace flinched because it turns out the body listens to names before the soul does. He slid a step. Lilt stepped with him. He tried to be smoke and found he was furniture. Violet tapped his shin. His knee remembered physics. He sat. Jaw sighed. He wasn't surprised. He was tired, which is worse. We're going to count to 10, he said. Then we're going to... He didn't get to choose the next verb. The mop closet door cracked an inch on its own. Not a ghost. Air pressure and stupidity partnering. A thin white ribbon of aerosol pushed out like a party popper that grew teeth. Lakers, God bless his bad timing, reached to close it. Ty, Rook barked. The kid didn't think. He did. He slammed the cooler lid down into the jet so the spray met ice instead of oxygen. The ribbon spluttered. The first fog burped itself dumb against plastic. Dane lunged 3 steps in a straight line only a drunk can run, shoulder-checking the collar man into the lilies, petals flying like confetti for sinners. Lilt hooked the bat under the closet handle and yanked the door wide. Rook saw the red can in the corner, the green siblings, the spice packet someone had returned like a bad conscience, 3 hoses rigged to a Y connector like a science project designed by grief. Who? Rook asked the air. Me, Mace blurted, hysterical honesty. Ledger said he'd pay me community credit if I... Lilt hit him with the bat, not skull, pride. He folded around his betrayal and met linoleum. Mint snarled for the first time anyone had heard, an ugly sound far from promotion. "You wanted to fog the angels?" he hissed. "For claps?" Jaw drew breath to be paternal. Dane flung the bottleneck at the words themselves. It hit nothing but air, and did its job anyway. The room chose a side. The ex-cops reached for less lethals, the taser that had humiliated itself earlier, the spray that had made babies cry. Nash's boys reached for habits. Lakers grabbed a knife and remembered he didn't know how to use it. Mason grabbed nothing and prepared to apologize to the future. Mint grabbed the red can and learned fear weighs 40 pounds. "Shut all of it," Rook said, chain suddenly a sermon. He fed it through the closet handle, around the hinge, through the slotted steel of the shelf, and wrenched. The door became a reluctant confession booth. Open enough to see the problem, jammed enough to keep the idiot plan from fully owning the room. Jaw tried to take that moment back, stepping into a voice he used to wear like armor. "Enough," he said, baton rising. "Drop the—" Lilt didn't let him. Violet moved like an heirloom sin. She clipped his forearm in on the nerve that turns hands into rumor. The baton clattered. Dane slid, scooped, tossed it into the lilies where it stuck upright like a planted flag. Two things happened at once. Mace lunged for the red can spigot like a man who's decided to finish a mistake. Ty put a hand on his wrist and turned it the wrong way further wrong. A mean little over-rotation he'd learned from watching Rook bend joints until they apologized. Bone didn't break, pride did. Mace howled and let go. Mint snarled again and kicked the can back into the dark, and Nash made his bet. He moved behind Rook, just one step, the kind of step you only notice when the knife arrives. He had a folding blade, gentleman slim. It whispered open with the kind of sex noise knives make in bad movies. He went for Rook's kidney like a man who wanted to call himself decisive. Rook turned on the leaf and the rails and the day and everything he'd learned from men who only taught with fists. The blade brushed his shirt and caught chain instead. Steel met steel with a hot kiss. Rook wrapped the links once around Nash's wrist and pulled him into the beads. Plastic rattled like cheap rain. Nash's mouth made a word nobody wanted to write down. Dane saw the motion, saw red, and chose theater. He leapt onto the counter, grabbed the fake lily bouquet with both hands, and brought it down hard on Laker's knife hand. Plastic stems snapped like little bones who thought they were safe. Lakers lost grip. Ty kicked the knife under the white cooler where things go to be forgotten. Jaw's two partners decided they had been hired to escalate, not negotiate. One fired the taser across the counter, darts singing. Rook yanked Nash into the line like a shield he didn't respect. The darts bit Hoodie and ground it out on chain. Nash screamed because pain doesn't care if physics says it shouldn't. The second ex-cop sprayed the long orange stream. Lilt raised the bat and took that stream like a cross to spare the room. Pepper burned her neck, her jaw, her left eye. She didn't blink. Violet blinked for her, tip-tapping the floor, an animal learning a mouth. "Turn it off," Mason told the collar man, who had scrabbled to his knees and was trying to pray via app. Mason's tone had that rare iron. The man heard it and obeyed because some people still respond to a parent voice, even if it comes from a sinner. Mint did the ungentlemanly and threw the red can at a wall where nothing flammable lived. Gas sloshed and smeared into a harmless suicidal streak. The room's wrong sweetness got replaced by the weird old smell of gas station birthdays. The hoses hissed final and dumb, defeated by their own idiotic engineer. "Door," Rook said, and Ty understood. Not exit door. Front door. He flung it. The bell shrieked. The street took a breath at the sight inside. Bat rising, chain lit, ex-cops chewing their own polite, Nash pinned by beads and debt, Mace holding his wrist like a baby who bit him, lilies shredded and strewn like a wedding ruined by honesty. Suture had come back to the curb, quiet as a regret. He saw the framing and raised his camera halfway. Lilt met his eye with the one that still worked. He lowered the camera. Some miracles arrive in ugly wrappings. "End it," she said. She meant it a way that had no poetry. Rook does not like executions. He doesn't forgive betrayals either. He dragged Nash into the middle of the fake flower shop, looped the chain twice around the man's clever wrist with the gentleman knife, and faced the room with the kind of tired that makes a person brave. "You threw fog at a kitchen," he said. "You put hands on the closet while angels were still washing babies' faces." Nash gobbled air. "Ledger. Ledger ain't a weather system," Rook said. "He's just a suit with a camera and a bridge with opinions." Nash jerked and tried to cut the chain with his gentleman blade. The steel laughed. Rook tightened. The links bit wrist. Blood appeared like it had just remembered it had a job. Dane slid down off the counter, bottleneck low. "Don't make this long," he told Rook, not to hurry. Just so the night wouldn't get greedy. Jaw lifted his palms, a hostage to inevitability. "Nobody has to." "Somebody has to," Lilt corrected, voice ragged, eyelids shiny with pepper, "or the ceiling learns the wrong lesson." Rook swung, not head, not throat. He fed the chain low and inside, knee and shin and the little bones that make pride stand. Nash collapsed, had to. Chains teach gravity. Rook stepped through, rapped once more, and yanked the arm behind where shoulders protest their architecture. The gentleman knife clattered. Ty plucked it and threw it into the lilies where ornaments go to die, and Rook made it personal. He dragged Nash by the chain into the mop closet he'd wanted to love. He jammed his shoulder against the door so it kissed the shelf, and the shelf kissed cans, and the cans hiccuped stupid. He held Nash's wrist against the shelf's lip and drove it once into the metal so the shelf learned blood taste. Nash screamed, high and honest. Rook didn't gloat. He didn't chant. He said, "No more fog," and drove the wrist once more. Dane flinched. Even he thought maybe that was enough. Lilt didn't flinch. She watched the pepper bead on her own jaw and refused to blink. Rook let Nash fall. The chain slithered free like a snake that had said what it needed to. Nash curled around his useless hand, the hand that had tried to turn an apology into a massacre. He wasn't dead. Not tonight. He was worse. Downgraded. Jaw's partners wanted to object and remembered they weren't paid enough. Jaw sagged into the doorway like a man seeing the last decent seat in a church and knowing it's not his. Mace whimpered. It wasn't a performance, it was a fact. Ty looked at him like a dog looks at a beggar. Sympathy and history in a war. "You fix what you can," the kid said. "Start by carrying trash." He shoved a broom into Mace's good hand and pointed at the lilies, at the blood, at the shredded towel, at all the little proofs that Ledger would not get to reassemble into a hymn. Mace began to sweep because some men only learn morality when their knees hurt. Mint sank onto the stool, braced both hands on his thighs, and blew out a laugh that had been trapped since the first time he rented a fog machine. "Mother of God," he said, "I'm sober." "Don't stay that way," Dane advised, and pushed the cup toward him. Mint didn't drink. He grinned at the choice like it was oxygen, and he'd been told he could have more. Mason said nothing for a full 30 seconds. He was pressing words through a filter that might make his future less ridiculous. "Do you want a statement?" he asked finally, to no one and everyone. "Or do you want me to go tell Ledger he missed the only part of the story worth filming?" "Tell him to bring a mop next time," Lilt said. Suture knocked, polite. He stood outside the frame with the camera at his chest and his eyes newly quiet. "You need anything from a butcher?" he asked. "Yes," Rook said. "Stay away from kitchens." Suture nodded. He actually left. That might have been the only miracle the lilies saw that night. Jaw bent, picked up his stupid baton out of the lilies, looked at it like a man viewing a relic from a cult he had left. He made the briefest eye contact with Rook. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't alliance. It was a shrug from an old war. We both still here. "You gonna write it?" Rook asked. "I'm gonna forget it," Jaw said, and walked his men out like a deacon dismissing a congregation that had finally earned a nap. Silence again. A low motor, the hum of the cooler, the city outside rehearsing tomorrow's sins. Mint stood, clapped his hands, and announced the only thing that keeps the dead from running the block. Clean. They cleaned. Blood comes off tile easy if you catch it while it's still deciding to be a memory. Petals, plastic and real, went into a busted trash bag that split anyway and got double-bagged like cheap hope. Ty wiped duct tape glue off the shelf lip with the seriousness of a surgeon. Dane poured the rails down a drain. Mint watched that money swirl away and let it. Nash groaned without dignity. Lilt put a rag under his wrist so he didn't bleed into the padlock. Mercy is petty like that, and powerful too. Rook stood in the doorway and looked at his block as if it might look back. He cupped the Blunt's dying cherry with a palm, breathed it awake, and released a thin ribbon of smoke that curled like punctuation. "Ledger hungry," Mason said, adjusting his beige. "Good," Rook answered. "Let him starve till it changes his face." Mint flicked the bell on the door. "We closed," he told the empty street. "Come back when your camera remembers how to hold a baby." Ty scribbled something with his Sharpie on the inside of the closet door and shut it. The word wasn't poetry, it was a command. It said, "Breathe." Dane slipped the bottleneck into his pocket, not to hide it, just to let it rest. Lilt rolled her neck, wiped pepper from her jaw with the back of her hand, and kissed 2 fingers to Violet's taped spine. "Good girl," she murmured. They stepped out onto the sidewalk 3 across, thin smoke drifting after like a stubborn idea. The municipal screen blinked down the block, gave up on weather, and congratulated a sports team that would not return the favor. The bridge did its long shadow dance and pretended not to crave a choir. Peace night had happened. Betrayal had tried to eat it and cracked a tooth. The ceiling had learned that doors open both directions. The lilies had witnessed a small war and kept standing. "Next," Mint said, "because some men take a beating like it's an audition for the next job." "We go pay the Angels' light bill. We go hide the green cans forever," Ty said. "We go buy a real mop," Dane added. "We go breathe," Rook said. He looked up. The sky had learned a new color for a second. He didn't name it. He put the chain back on his wrist, the bracelet insult Ledger hated, and led them toward the river that had never promised anything and sometimes kept it.